Hello, team. We have another Lime Warcast. Here's the map, real quick. Our players are Hawk, who is in red, and Afina, who is in blue. This is top of the line war ladder. I'd consider top 40 to definitely be top. This is the first replay we've done on the new replay system, so we can see the players' names up in the top left, which is actually great. I appreciate this. Yeah, again, Hawk is in red, so Hawk going for a 2 airport start immediately. We'll see what Afina wants to do, because Afina has not quite seen them yet. So 2 airport and a town right away for Afina. Now Afina knows and sees that Hawk has spawned here. So we'll see what the game plan is. Hawk, of course, now sees that Afina is here. Barracks for Hawk in the bottom left there, a factory and a barracks for Afina. And we can kind of get an idea of what both players want to do with their lines quickly to see if they want to be aggressive or what the deal is. A Sam coming out of this factory for Hawk, which I think is a really good play. I personally like building a factory and then just pumping some Sams out. It feels like very defensive and safe, rather. Hawk has a numbers advantage here, so Afina is right to pull back and retreat. Because one of the quickest ways to snowball like an early game is by losing one of your first squads without the enemy taking many casualties. And then, you know, obviously then there's a numbers discrepancy and your opponent has an advantage. We can check the immediate income, 365 for Afina, 284 for Hawk. I think that's mostly going to be this town, I believe, but Afina also has a little bit of an advantage in the sense that all the land behind them is actually open field. Hawk has to walk through a bunch of forest and mountains. Infantry and units in general just walk slower through forests and especially mountains. So Afina should be able to kind of get a quicker eco lead with capturing more territory slightly quicker. These helicopters are huge for Hawk. We really need to see what Afina's making out of their airports yet, and so it's strikers for Afina. So Hawk's gonna be able to use these helicopters more immediately. Afina, after banking up a few of these strikers, is gonna be able to take out potentially an entire building. And I wonder if this is why Afina's sending these strikers down to the bottom, because Afina doesn't know that the gas is there, but there's no other gas that Hawk could take. So targeting this gas is a really smart play by Afina, because if you can kill the gas, you can get rid of all these helicopters that are going to be super pesty until, you know, your own SAMs are out. So in the bottom left, we can kind of watch picture in picture if the strikers are able to kill the gas. They're probably not going to be able to. The magic number is actually 5 strikers to kill a building in one go. But maybe over time they're going to be able to do this? I'm not actually sure because they're not even shooting anything else. So I'm just so interested watching this. Is this going to be able to do it? There's no more missiles in these strikers. So their major damage output is gone. First Sam out for Afina, which is, you know, obviously very good to deal with these helicopters. We've seen the dangers of letting the opponent get to just a full swarm of helicopters. They're so mobile, and if SAMs aren't there, they're going to be able to pick it off. But this is really great for Afina, because they're going to get this gas, for sure. You can see the haste move on this command for Afina, because Afina has enough gas for this maneuver, and as long as Afina can get rid of this gas and then get their own gas, these helicopters have to stay grounded for Hawk. It's actually very good for them. We can check the income again, 428 for Hawk, 413 for Afina. So Hawk's starting to get ahead. Or has caught up fully in the econ game. So Afina now has a gas advantage. I don't think, like, okay, so Afina's made a gas in the north. I was actually questioning where the heck all this gas was coming from. So this is huge for Afina, because besides the SAMs that have been made for Hawk, there's nothing really Like, all of the investment in the airports is useless at this point until they get their gas back. And like, it's really a very, very strong play for Afina to take out that gas immediately. And it's one of the best ways you can end the game early, or just like the one of the most important things you can do with your time is just try to snipe your opponent's gas. Have another factory for Afina. We can see in the back if there's any development. There's just capping to the north. There's no barracks yet to help out with that. Hawk is making their way through all of this very rough terrain, through the forests and the mountains. But in general, I think Hawk is just focusing on getting their gas back up. And now that these helicopters can fly, maybe getting a little bit more aggressive with them, or seeing if Hawk can get the helicopters where the SAMs aren't, they're going to be able to do a lot of damage. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, but especially with helicopters because they pop so quickly. This is very unfortunate for Hawk that this helicopter either isn't quite in range or hasn't picked up this command, because these SAMs do just as much damage on the ground with their I think they do just as much damage on the ground. You can see that they were shooting missiles. So we can watch, kind of see, like, this is a decent swarm of helicopters. So if you can get enough helicopters that you can just overwhelm the SAMs, then that's really good, you know, like, as the player going for air. But in a situation like this where only a few helicopters would even hit the SAMs, it's not as ideal. And this is good for Afina for sure. 500 income for Hawk and 461 for Afina, but Afina's going to be very quickly up on the airfield of Hawk. And so Hawk's going for another factory. I think that's the right play in the back, because even this much infantry can actually cause a lot of problems, because there's only 2 SAMs in the forest for Hawk. There's no artillery with 6 or whatever, no, 7, 8 infantry. If these infantry push up, they might actually be able to at least pressure that airport very well. This is a factory for Afina here. So 3 factory in the back, a bunch of strikers in the airports, starting to transition into a few interceptors for Afina. I think that's a smart play. If you can keep interceptors away from SAMs and up in the air while your opponent's air is out, interceptors are a great play, because there's no match for interceptors, you know, trying to shoot other things in the air out of the sky. And I believe they actually got a little bit of a buff. I think they got a little buff on the patch notes today. I didn't actually read them all like super closely, because I trust and support every decision being made, and you know, I prefer to be ignorant and do trial by error. But so we'll see if these interceptors come into play. I mean, if these SAMs get cleared out in the north, like if Afina's able to get rid of them, then these interceptors are going to do tons of damage to these helicopters. 3 SAMs, a 4th SAM's going to show up to try to deal with these strikers, but there's of course the magic number of 5, so they are able to hit it right away. That's a huge snipe, because now Hawk is in the exact same situation again. We can see that they have no gas. Income wise, 548 for Hawk, 521 for Afina, and both players have enough capital to start making more buildings at least. Yeah, Afina just spent something there, and Hawk still has a little bit of leftover money. These infantry aren't able to get the airport. That's a great defense by Hawk. And now, like, all of those infantry have, you know, like, obviously they're not there anymore. They're not able to push up. I think Hawk's gonna be able to hold this fine as long as they can get another gas. And that's kind of the question here. You'd assume that this bottom gas is probably what Hawk will go for. 2 more factories from Hawk. So this might be... There's 2 ways to think about this, I feel. Like, this could just be an admission that getting up this gas has not been easy, and that these are going to be gasless units, like kind of artillery, or SAMs even, or some mixture of the 2. Because with two airports, production-wise on the planes, things are going fine for Hawk. It's really just the gas question. So I'm interested to see, maybe it could even be this top left gas that Hawk is going to take. But you'd assume that and feel like that needs to get sorted out, because it's just so much money that's not being used correctly. Not, correctly isn't the right word at all. I mean efficiently. And it's a very tough spot that Hawk's in, to be fair. Like, this isn't just, you know, like clearly a mistake or something. Afina's done a great job to snipe that gas twice and really cause a lot of panic and get them behind. This is a good trade for Hawk. Just numbers wise, there's more SAMs for Hawk shooting less SAMs for Afina, so the longer this goes on, the better. I like that Afina is pushing this, especially since there's still no gas for Hawk. With these planes, I think Afina can actually see that. This isn't ideal, but if Afina can get something going on this right side, these commandos are huge. These could do a lot of damage, like a ton of damage if Hawk isn't careful here. Barracks in the top for Afina. This is really helping cap all that north spot. Hawk's capping in the back is a little bit more slow going. I'd assume that Hawk is behind in economy now. 581 for Afina, 632 for Hawk, so we can't read a game. And when I say we, I mean me. It really feels like Afina could have more income than what's like going on right now. We'll kind of see how that north side develops, because with these two factories coming on, Hawk is definitely going to be able to hold this. I wonder if these SAMs can even get one more helicopter. But there's so much. I guess that there's all this economy that Afina hasn't quite taken taken control of. Yeah, a little bit here on the right, but there is tons of spots, and this city up in the north for Afina is very protected. Afina's attacking this barracks with some strikers and also focusing on the infantry on the airport at the top. This is big. If those helicopters on the airport are still landed when the infantry kill the airport, if they're able to, then the helicopters just die. Which is always just so heartbreaking as the person who's lost the airport themselves. We can hear that Afina made a factory somewhere, yeah, so it's right here. So Afina's kind of responding to the more factories from Hawk with factories of their own. This factory is for sure dead after these other two strikers show up. And I think Afina's done a great job to really, like, just really throw Hawk off their game. I can't imagine that Hawk feels comfortable in, you know, a game where your gas has been sniped twice, your production's getting sniped, and this is all the dynamic of Afina going for strikers and Hawk going off of airports. Making helicopters out of their airports at the beginning of the game. Because once Afina was able to get those strikers, then clearly this gas is very close in range of these strikers. And you can imagine if Hawk sent SAMs down to the bottom to defend, then what you would just see is the strikers going up to the north to take out these airports. So Hawk is getting air back now. This is not enough SAMs for Afina to deal with all these helicopters. If all these helicopters were to attack at once, I think they're going to be able to overwhelm these SAMs, even if it's you know, not an ideal trade, but then it'll kind of open up the map for Hawk to be able to use these. But here's where the interceptors come in, and we can see just how fast these things are. I think interceptors are one of the coolest units in the game. I barely build them because I'm not good enough to not fly them over SAMs, but this is a great use. Like, you can see that Hawk has to land these things immediately. Hawk is making more factories. I mean, in reality, it's just to make up for that one factory that got sniped earlier by Afina. And this is, I think, really good for Afina. It's a little bit risky because there are 3 SAMs, which is kind of like the magic number for how many strikers were sent to do a lot of damage here. Yeah, losing the last helicopter is also not ideal. But these commandos in the back could still be big. I think on the bottom, Afina is going to be okay. We can check the income real quick. This is big, 700 for Afina and 656 for Hawk. So now Afina's starting to get a little bit of a upper hand. I feel like just all the land in the top is starting to come into play. This commando's just hanging out beside this factory. Just posted up. And we can check the back of the map to see you know how far Hawk has got. There's no real economic development besides this first town from Afina. This commando in particular, I don't know how it's going to do okay. Because, you know, to production airport, Hawk has tons of helicopters. Like, they've really, you know, banking up over time. And that's not to say Afina doesn't have tons of planes of their own. But, like, a swarm of helicopters can be particularly quick and deadly. In our experience, like in my experience at least. So a little bit of a stalemate going on. I like that Afina is sending these commandos up to the north. It just really opens up the multitask aspect of the game. It keeps your opponent on their back foot, as we've seen. I feel this is the story of the game so far. So as it settles, we'll see if Hawk's able to, you know, now that they have their gas set up, it's not at risk of anything. I mean, of course, if Afina can get these commandos all the way behind and snipe that gas, that would be terrible. But, you know, the pace of the game has slowed, so we'll see what Hawk's plan is and how they come out of this. Almost 750 income for Afina, and just shy of 700 for Hawk. This is a big moment. If these helicopters can get rid of all these SAMs before the interceptors show up, that's pretty decent for Hawk, I think. Strikers aren't really going to kill helicopters all that well. What we're watching really is just the helicopter versus the SAM fight. And it looks like this is good for Hawk. I think this is good for Hawk. Now, if they can land these helicopters right now before losing many of them to this one interceptor that's out, or even, you know, bait these planes into these SAMs, I don't know. I feel like that was pretty good for Hawk. Because there's now only 2 SAMs for Afina, and there's still like 7 helicopters for Hawk. They have a artillery advantage here. The commandos aren't doing anything for Afina. There's no real second front getting opened up. This could be a very strong push from Hawk. Like, we need to quickly check the rest of the map just to make sure no one's developing economically. We can hear that there's a factory for Hawk right here. Economy-wise, Hawk is still behind, but this might do a lot of damage. Like, checking how many planes Afina has left on the airports, there's actually not that many. And a lot of the helicopters for Hawk did die to the SAMs, but there's still 5 or whatever. And there's no SAMs here anymore. Hawk has a numbers advantage in the bottom. These commandos are gonna, like, this is shut down completely now at this point, just because the front is wide enough. And as long as Hawk kind of pushes along the top, they're not gonna lose track of those commandos. And this helicopter's advantage is just proven to be so big. Really need to check the income, because if Afina's behind in income, that's kind of scary. 797 for Afina, 728 for Hawk, so I think Hawk is caught up a little bit. But just to go away for a second, again to check, yeah, there's still no... I'm looking at that city on the far left for Hawk to see when and if they start to pull the trigger on that. Because they're definitely winning on 2 fronts here, as long as the SAM positioning is really good. And they keep enough SAMs, I think they're going to be okay. Running the helicopters into these SAMs, it'd almost be better to have more helicopters up with that. I'm obviously like nitpicking while not playing the game, just focused on one screen. Like, there's so much going on in this game, so I'm not faulting, you know, anyone, but like, it's just tough losing a few helicopters here and there in this situation. That could be the difference between getting a really good trade somewhere and not. This is kind of like, Afina's reinforcements are going to be able to group up a little bit better or more naturally than Hawk's reinforcements. I think this is a great play by Hawk to send these helicopters over to the left side. Like, I think this is the most ideal use for the helicopters at this stage. Instead of going kind of at the production, is like skirting the sides of the thing, maybe picking off a building, and mostly shooting artillery. I like this run by Hawk. That's really good to potentially get this gas, or at least, at the very least, see how far up north Afina's been able to get. Bottom side, both players kind of traded out. This factory is almost up for Hawk. And unfortunately, like, this command is only infantry, so that one artillery is just hanging out. But these infantry in the north are on top of the production now. So Afina has to pull a few of the units, or at least launch the planes, to be able to deal with this. Because this is enough infantry that they'll be able to kill one of these barracks. Like, this feels a little bit scary. The only thing that over time Afina might be fine is because there's so many barracks. Factories. Like, there's 6 factories here and 2 barracks. So if Afina can hold all this production, it's gonna be good. Sending the planes to the north, I think, is the play, just because there's so many SAMs in the south here. Unfortunately, of course, there's no interceptors to help deal with these helicopters. There are enough SAMs, though. It's gonna be tough if they get another helicopter, but they, thankfully for Hawk, don't. And I think this looks good for Hawk. It would be sweet to see some eco development a little bit. Because over time, the longer that this goes right now, I think it's better for Afina, because Afina will get more income. 788 for Hawk and 869 for Afina. So now Afina's almost 100 eco ahead, and there's still more land up north to capture. Another factory for Afina. They did not lose this barracks, which is really big. These planes into this many SAMs is maybe not going to be the best, but I don't know if, you know, Afina had seen everything, or like all these SAMs coming into the picture. This is just good. This is a good fight, I feel like. This is great SAM positioning by both players, because you don't want them getting hit by artillery. And so, you know, and if, like, Hawk's done a good job to kind of spread them out on both sides of this little choke, and I think Afina's, like, central positioning to cover all of the industry, or the production, is really good. This is great by Hawk on the right side, though. And this very quickly is going to open up another front into the main base of Afina, which is terrifying for Afina. Yeah, see, this is... I mean, I don't know exactly how the trades work here. 3 SAMs just walked into 1 artillery. It sounds like a joke, like a bar joke or something. But 3 SAMs walk into 1 artillery. 1 SAM dies. That's actually way better than I thought it would be, to be real. But that's why we watch these replays, to learn stuff like this. We can check the income. 905 for Afina, 812 for Hawk. I wonder, neither player's ecoing quite yet, but Afina's almost got the whole north of the map. Launching another sortie right into this, but there's so many SAMs on both sides of the ball. Like, the air is kind of getting taken out of the game in a sense right now. Rather, both players have to be very kind of precise and also pray to the RNG gods that their stuff doesn't fly directly over SAMs, or as close to the SAMs, because we can just see, like, how many helicopters just rolled in there, like 6, and 2 get out, and that last one, this one on the north, was close to not. 2 more factories for Hawk. We could hear the noise. I love this play. I think that's the right play right now. If there's not going to be econ development, then going for, like, kind of like a killing blow. I feel like this is a killing blow sort of move. I think that's really good. And these SAMs for Hawk are just coming in so clutch right now. And they sound so cool. Like, come on. It's just firecrackers going at each other. And I don't think Afina has that many planes left. Yeah. Like, Afina has 2 planes. These commandos weren't able to really get behind anything and do something. 2 more factories for Afina. And I think that's also, like, the right play. It's hard to... I mean, I think at this point Afina kind of has to, because we can see what Afina's seeing, right? They don't see that there's 2 factories on the bottom, but if your opponent were to do that, like Hawk has, then these 2 factories kind of become important, because over time Hawk might be able to bunch up. Like, as I say this, maybe these factories... Afina's naturally kind of pushing this back a little bit. Hawk's getting a little bit spread out. It's a lot of SAMs. I don't know, I feel like these 2 factories are actually good. Because this is scary from Hawk. Especially with all these helicopters. Like, the helicopters, if they were to go around back, like, This front push is so scary. The SAMs are going for it. I think Afina's gonna hold, but it's gonna be a little bit ugly and sketchy. I love that these helicopters went to the north for Hawk. Because you can imagine if Afina didn't pull these SAMs as quick, these helicopters would just be on top of like this industry and production. And this feels like a going for it moment from Hawk. Sending in all the SAMs, I think, you know, like you might be able to tell that Afina would be low on planes at this point after losing so many, but when you lose your SAMs, you either have to rebuild your SAMs or now you're going without SAM coverage, which is generally, at least for, you know, going to be kind of scary. Still producing SAMs though. I think, yeah, Hawk is still producing SAMs, so it's not like they've stopped it entirely. This is a really good fight. Because this is so close. Afina's walking this perfect line between holding, you know, and not losing production, because you really don't want to lose production. It's just so expensive. Yeah, we can start to check again in the rest of the map. There's still no economic development for either player. And eco-wise, 1061 for Afina and 836 for Hawk. So Afina continues to get more, like, further ahead in this. And if this fizzles out for Hawk, that's going to be really bad for them. Because there's 2 more factories on the way for Afina. And we see that Afina is making more income. So Afina's going to be able to outproduce Hawk in a few minutes as this kind of, like, this production ramps up. And then with more economy, you know, Afina's in a better position in general. This bottom push is good from Hawk, because I believe they're going to get 2 buildings here. And see, yeah, so Afina does hold this, but it's just kind of ugly. A dock from Hawk, which I do like, because they like need to get off this kind of southern island, or at least start developing economically, because Afina is ahead right now. And so getting more land and taking that from Afina becomes more important, especially as time goes on. We can again look at the money. 848 for Hawk, and they don't have a lot. 1085 for Afina, and like per minute Afina is making more money. Not a lot of planes left for Afina. Still a decent I guess 5 helicopters isn't super decent for Hawk, but it's enough to work with. This is a lot of RD-SAM from Hawk, and it's a wide front. We're just kind of watching this now. How could you not say this game's not cool? You know what I mean? I don't know anyone who has, but it's just looks great, sounds great. These helicopters of Afina's are getting knocked out in the north. And unfortunately for these 2, they're flying over a bunch of SAMs. This one in the far north actually is also going to get taken out, which is not ideal for, like, that's really not ideal. You don't want to be losing these helicopters, but of course, I would assume there's probably other pressing concerns that Afina has going through their mind, like this entire push from Hawk. These helicopters in the back can do a lot of damage now. It's worth noting still that Afina has more income. So losing these 2 production facilities really suck. But now that these 2 factories in the back have come online, Afina is going to be able to outproduce this. 1133 income for Afina and 848 for Hawk. And this is starting to fizzle a little bit. So I'd assume Afina would push with one side down to the south, and then the rest of the army would go straight up the gut. But there's a third front getting opened up here with Hawk, with Samson and helicopters, which is a great combination. You got to pay attention to it, but it is a great combination. First dock, or rather the first boat for Hawk is about to get to the mainland. They're going to see that Afina does have all of it. Let's see if they're going to be able to effectively land there. Yeah, now that Afina's cleaned this up, I think it becomes... Because I don't think this is going to actually pressure all that much, this northern push by Hawk. There's a decent amount of helicopters, but... Afina doesn't have a great SAM count, so if Hawk can find a way to use the helicopters without getting hit by the 5 SAMs, then that could be a big play, but I think in general it's going to start turning into like whether Hawk can take the northern part of the map from Afina. Because we can see that this defense is going well. And now that these SAMs can actually just go at the SAMs of Afina, it kind of changes things. I mean, this artillery pops, and I guess it starts to look bad. I don't think... Hawk might be able to get a building here. But there are enough SAMs, and I agree with running away. That's a good play, I think. Income check, 848 for Hawk. Hawk is also running low on gas a little bit. 1193 for Afina. Afina hasn't really been able to use much because most of the planes have been shot out of the sky. So, like, gas-wise, they don't have a second refinery, and their first one is full. And see, like, yeah, this helicopter's potentially gonna go down. It's unfortunate for Afina. This one won't. So many factories here for Afina now, though. And another one. Another 2 going down in the back. Neither player ecoing yet. Which is fine, but it does, like, lead to these very supercharged battles, which, like, of course, again, like, I'm fine with that. Heck yeah. This is a lot of production, though. This is where a nuke would maybe come in handy for Hawk, but I'm not sure if Hawk can afford a nuke with the income that they're going off of. Like, if Hawk wants to go for a nuke, they would have to go for a nuke, like, even cutting production somewhere, and then start making a nuke. This is a really good play by Hawk. This is kind of what, you know, when I say, like, if they can get helicopters in the spot that the SAMs aren't, it can be big. And it's exactly stuff like that. You take, like, an artillery piece or 2, and then when the SAMs move, you just rotate the helicopters, or at the very least get them out of there. No more boats out of the north dock from Hawk, which I like. You can see that Hawk knows that this north is, like, Afina has all of this on their map. Like, this is what Hawk is seeing, right? And as for Afina, I think it's pretty clear that they're holding. This, at least visually, I think is a hold. The helicopters are in sight, which is really good, so you can kind of keep an eye on them in case they want to rotate. But in general, Afina has enough here. And again, Afina has more income. 1,200, just over 1,200 for Afina, 860 for Hawk. So 400, or whatever that is, like 350 income ahead. And however many factories this is now, these helicopters should get shut down by the SAMs. I'd assume, as these 2 groups of SAMs are in range. Like, so the helicopters do decent, taking out 2 artillery pieces. If Hawk lands these now and gets away with it, that'd be ideal. Yeah, and I think Hawk's right to back up. So that's officially done. There's tanks coming out of this factory for Afina. Maybe just this one tank. Okay, so there's one tank that's already done, but it's one factory doing tanks. I really like this play. Tanks do a great job in the open if they can get around the opponent's army and get on top of production. So you can imagine if these SAMs get pulled out of position, or these units do, the tanks even running up here and sniping these 2 factories could be huge. So small infantry combat in the north there. Another factory for Afina. Sorry, barracks rather. And we can see that Hawk's starting to make a barracks up in the north, which is super necessary. Because that becomes the battleground, like, because this now becomes... Afina is going to be able to push very hard here. Behind it, Afina would probably go for economy as long as this push is working, but it's up to Hawk to now defend. And Hawk needs to find a way to either do damage to Afina on the production aspect or the economy aspect by like taking this territory in the north, uh, or just having a decisive victory. But I think in general it's going to come down to that North Island. If Hawk can start chipping away at the income that Afina has, maybe they'll be able to get back into this game. There's no nuke on the way for Hawk. This should be a very large push from Afina. And we'll see if the SAMs are going to be moved in the right spot. There's not that many helicopters left for Hawk though, so it becomes less of a problem for Afina. These strikers are back. And this is very wise to just land these things immediately, I think. Oh no, so this is the attack path. This is actually really cool. So Afina using the attack command on the strikers to get a better angle to not actually go over everything. I think landing it is very wise because there are a lot of SAMs for Hawk here. Afina has more production, so in theory Afina should produce more units to get to the front because there are only four factories on this side for Hawk and 4 on the top side, and there's more than 8 factories here. I mean, granted, there's a bunch of artillery that's not moving, I guess, but this is wild. We can check the economy before focusing back on the part of the map that is super important. 1253 for Afina and just over 850 for Hawk. This is great by Hawk though, so there's enough support, like the air support with the helicopters for Hawk on the north, that they probably are going to be able to establish those barracks. We saw up in the north that Afina has a barracks of their own, so getting rid of that is going to be kind of important for Hawk. But if they can start to, again, take that economy away from Afina, it would be in their best interest, I think. Yeah, this is a lot of stuff from Afina. And in a head-to-head fight, Afina will win. There's no nuke from Hawk yet that we've seen. We're notorious for missing nukes on this channel in games, so maybe we've already missed 3. But it doesn't really look like either player has the income. Like Afina a little bit, but I don't think with 872 income you can really build a nuke, at least effectively. Like rather, it has to be the best nuke of all time, because that's a lot of your money. A missile nuke, whatever it is. This is a great retreat by Hawk, and a great use of the defensive line command, which in my own games I'm trying to use more. Because you really get this, you know, the artillery spread out and they're all firing at once here. These tanks are going to do nothing. Just because they're going to get body blocked so hard. Hawk is almost out of gas. So they must be flying more helicopters now. And I guess this boat is going. Yeah, there's more helicopters, right? Because they're on the north. This becomes a big battle in the north. This could become a little bit stalematey on this front. The left front, of course, is just a huge artillery battle. Hawk definitely needs to find some gas to build, because these helicopters are what's making this northern like landing go so well. No gas development as of yet for Hawk. And this might be slowly falling apart. Just because Afina is going to make so much stuff. There's also a decent amount of strikers and interceptors that are getting built up. And so soon Afina is going to be able to launch that, and if they skirt around the SAMs, like there's tons of SAMs in the north, but if they launch the south, like this is all done for Hawk. Sending the helicopters down to the south is great for Hawk. The only concern is, of course, the gas situation. We can see in the north if this is getting cleaned up. Afina has their own helicopters here now, and so I think Afina will be able to hold the north, and I think that's ultimately going to seal this. Because income-wise, 896 for Hawk and 1217 for Afina. This is quite the standoff, though. Okay, we hear a bunch of explosions. I'm always afraid it's a nuke that we're missing. Yeah, so let's see what these planes can do going to the south. These 3 SAMs have shown up at a great time, but 4 strikers. I guess there's 4 SAMs over here. The 4th one is showing up. But there's just too much from Afina. I like this dig in from Afina because it's such a choke that Hawk would have to go through, so maybe diverting everything to the south isn't even that bad of an idea. Afina is able to take this out. Barracks of Afina on the top. We can see, you know, what the rest of the map looks like, but I think this is pretty much it. That was super cool. Yeah, I really wonder how, like, this fight around Afina's base, it certainly felt like Hawk was close to just, like, breaking it and being able to start takeout production. But now that Afina has, we can count it. What is this? 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah, 12 factories and 2 barracks here. I mean, this, you know, heavily outproducing Hawk off of only 9 factories. I think we counted that right. I don't know. Get at me in the comments if we don't. Yeah, this is totally Afina's on the north. This is all kept. And there's just too much for Afina. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's about it. There's you know, great play by both players. I think both these players are playing in the, well, I guess this video will be released probably during the Q2 2022 tournament, which you can check out the Line War Discord to get more information and follow the games. I'm certainly excited to see them when I get back from a little bit of a vacation over the weekend. But, you know, I stream Line War, other folks do too. Please feel free to drop by Twitch and say hello or just follow the category. A bunch of helicopters are so good. I really feel like it. Like, that was actually really good for Hawk in the north there, I think. Yeah, GG. Sweet. That was very cool. Well played to both players. And I thank you for tuning in again. I hope you have a wonderful day, night, evening, whatever it is for you. And enjoy, have fun. See you around.